Fellow travelers, welcome to the Dialogues Within. These are dialogues with myself, conversations with my friends. Most important of all, these are honest conversations steeped in truth. Fellow travelers, during my long 37 years of service, I've been to all the nook and cranny of India, met a lot of people, especially youth. And what I've found is the youth has a lot of energy, but at the same time, the youth is going through a lot of stress and anxiety. In fact, the young population of India is very huge. It is assessed that between 18 and 35 years, there are over 600 million youth in India. They are having conflicting thoughts, transgenerational traumas, and also they have aspirations galore. And this leads to a lot of mental stress and mental health issues. So today, I have a young friend of mine here to speak to you about these issues. She is Ashwasti Tripathi, a psychotherapist, a renowned psychotherapist who works from Delhi. She wears many hats. She's been a teacher, worked with the government. In her academic world, she has written papers, traveled all over the world, and she has a clinic from where she practices psychotherapy. She is an emphatic listener when it comes to therapy, but today I would like her to speak to us. And as we listen to us, not only that we cover the territory with regard to mental health issues, we'll also look forward to getting some tools to how to face this problem. So, welcome Ashwasti to the Dialogues Within.
Thank you.
Well, I must confess right in the beginning that I Googled your name and did a bit of a research, and I came across a very, very interesting word. The name of your clinic is Therao. And now, Therao is a word in Hindustani classical music which means a pause. And it's not a vacant pause, it's an impactful pause. So naturally, it's my curiosity to know, and ours also, how did you come across this word?
Well, first, sir, thank you for having me. Therav is a word that I really feel can only be understood in a picture, in an image. It's not really translatable. Therav is a purposeful calm, an island of purposeful calm, while there are all kinds of storms around it. And this is the feeling state that I feel clients come looking for when they come to my clinic. And when they leave, when they complete the journey of psychotherapy with me, I have noticed that they take it with them. In fact, it becomes a part of their vocabulary. They often tell me that ऐसा नहीं लग रहा कि नहीं संभाल पाऊंगा. अब मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है कि इतना ठहराव है अंदर. And that's the beauty of the word. ठहराव हमेशा अंदर होता है. It's always inside us. And that's the reason why I chose this word for my clinic.
What a beautiful word and what a beautiful expression, how you have articulated it. But then, you know, you work at cutting edge of society and you deal with these issues, and you have worked all around the world and you know the state of mental health in various countries. What is the state of mental health in society? I mean, especially in India.
Well, sir, right now, currently, we're in a bit of a state of transition. Earlier, we used to have this imagination of mental illness as absolutely losing one's mind. Pagal khana and, you know, pagal ho jana, not having any control over oneself, completely, you know, a life that is in shattering pieces all over the world, right? That is how it was thought of, really, which is really important for us now, currently in the Indian setup in particular, is that we're moving away from this difficult understanding of madness to an understanding where mental illness is thought of as an internal turmoil that does not take away your capacity to be a fully functioning citizen. You are a providing member of the society, you are capable, you are a provider for your family, for your cultural activities, and you still have a storm inside. It could be depression, it could be anxiety. We're moving away from the idea of a madman and being ever closer to an imagination of a person who's distressed but has not lost their mind. So currently we're in India especially, we're looking at a lot more awareness, recognition for depression, for anxiety, for eating disorders and disorders of sleep which are manifesting due to stress. So that's where we are, if I were to give you a broad picture.
Okay, that's interesting broad picture. And what you said was very interesting in one sense, that those who are going through these issues are living their life on the surface. They are living it very normally, and they are actually going through turmoil inside. Am I right in that? Yes, so that's very interesting to know. And you know, what has happened is that this subject has been a taboo in Indian society, and it's not discussed in open domain. Do you think things are changing now?
Well, sir, like I said, that now that we're willing to address that, if you are depressed, it doesn't take away your credibility. You are still, you can be in fact very high performing, high functioning. What it has done over time is that it has removed some of the shame around mental illnesses. So what has happened instead is that we are able to have conversations, still stilted conversations, with less shame, because we understand that the person is very valuable, their capacity, their worth in society is still very much intact. But I'd like to point a small thing here, sir. We assume in our everyday lives good health, right? You and I, we go around, we don't think that somebody is unwell. So physical health or mental health, we actually don't talk about both. And we don't do it because of the kind of prejudice that it is likely to attract towards us. And a recent example from our lives is COVID-19 and how people responded if they got a diagnosis, how others responded around them, etc. So health is always assumed to be good health and is usually not spoken about. The idea here being that we want to remove shame from the topic, but we also need to be aware that it's still a private matter. People can choose where they want to have a conversation about this.
Yes, I do agree. People do not share physical as well as mental health. But I think we all need a small group maybe to share. And also at times, you know, this world, everybody wants to be strong, everybody wants to be successful. There's no room for failure. And this world somehow has got contrived into a place where failure is looked down upon. And maybe mental health issue and physical health issue is towards that spectrum that we do not want to read about it, to talk about it. Then I would just also like to ask you one more thing, that traditionally in India we had a joint family system in which there was tremendous support across generations for children, and in the same house or under the same roof, the grandfather and the grandchild and the grandmother and the grandchildren used to stay. And there were, you know, cross connections and sharings and such things. As urbanization grew, we came to a nuclear family, and now we find so many young people have to live alone, away from their families, nuclear family or parents, and there's a sort of anomie which has set in. Do you think this is leading to mental health issues?
Yes, sir. I think what you're calling an anomie, I would talk about it in terms of reconfiguring connections, sir. Everything that we have taken for granted in the last couple of years, last couple of decades to be more specific, has now undergone such a sea change. I'll give you an example. Privacy is something that we are very sure of, right? It's a very strong boundary. Ghar ki baat, bahar ki baat. Things that are spoken in the family, things that are not spoken outside about the family, they're kept inside the family. But now we have something called as vlogging. So one of the family members is a social media sensation, and they come to the dining table at dinner and place their camera over there. Now, all the conversation on the dinner table, what food is cooked, how it is eaten, what are the traditions around it, are available on the internet. So suddenly what has happened is that a particular negotiation has to be done again, because now privacy is not the same as what we had understood it so many years ago. We have to renegotiate and recalibrate a lot of our connections. And this tumult, this transition is fertile ground for all kinds of mental health issues to crop up, because we are isolated and we don't know how to reconnect. Sometimes we are connected, but the connection is not working really well. We had a very set way, as you had pointed out, right, with the joint family setup. Everything was regulated, everything had its own space. But now we're in a period of time where things are being renegotiated, and that flux is leading to a lot of distress, primarily because we have to reconnect, disconnect with ourselves, with others.
Do you think high doses of education would be one of the means of resetting these connections quickly? Because it is a work in progress. The reconnections which you're speaking about, reconfiguration, recalibrations will take place as the society moves on. But how can we quicken it? Perhaps to have a more settled society. Would a good dose of education or discussing mental health issues at school level, college level help?
Well, sir, I think that it does help. I do agree with your point, but I'd like to point something out, sir, that sometimes we over-intellectualize. It kind of backfires on us.
Yes,
and
yes.
And I'm a therapist, and nobody can tell you this better than our community.
I agree with you on that.
So
Yes.
my point is that we can have education being brought in, but I think fundamentally the answer is in connection, being present to each other.
Right.
I think that will make, like you were saying, perhaps hasten the process, make it a little bit quicker. But I'll have to think more about your question, sir. I admit that I'll have to introspect a bit more about this, come up with an answer.
Well, introspect, yes, but you're the one who is working in the field, and I'll go by what you have said, that we do over-intellectualize things. That is true. But let me move a little further. In my travels all around the country, what I found, the youth are in stress, competition, aspiration, expectation, all that is going on. But when we sit on conversations, and conversations are you rambling and subjective, but then conversations with colleagues, with friends, with academicians, with students, and with children, it's said that social media leads to a lot of issue and is a major culprit. But I'm sure there will be more culprits than just social media and social media. So what are the contributors in society to mental health issues?
I'd like to focus on two, sir. There are many, but I'll give you a psychoanalytic answer. The first I'd like to focus on is the idea of imagination being greater than reality. If I have, suppose, imagined I'll go home after this and I will have a specific meal that I will order, right? Or I will cook, and I go home and I'm not able to do it because maybe an ingredient is missing, I don't have that, or it's raining and I cannot order in the meal. So there is so much distress that I had imagined something and I really wanted it and I couldn't get it, and now you have to adapt, right? And very often what meets this moment is a tantrum or a breakdown, as opposed to a sense of adaptability, that it's okay, can't cook this, let me make a grilled cheese sandwich, equally amazing, you know. So I think what happens right now with a lot of the younger population especially is that the way they have imagined it has somehow turned in their minds to be much bigger than reality, and this has a lot of consequences with their ability to be happy and be comfortable and content with themselves. So I think this is really, really important. The second thing I'd like to flag is repetition, sir. If you have good things in your life and the good things repeat, you have a better experience with yourself. If you have bad things in life and the bad things repeat, you'll have a bad experience. What I mean here is that you have a bad day, you go home, you tell yourself, I'm going to try and salvage it. I'll make myself something yummy and I will sleep on time today because I didn't have a great day. This is a good feeling. So this is a feeling where you take care of oneself, right? As opposed to, I've had a crap day, sir. I'm going to go and I'm going to take at least 6-7 drinks. I want to be sloshed when I go to bed. I don't want to think about this day. So if you look at both these things, both of them are not thinking about this bad day because right now they don't want to think about that bad day. But they have very different approaches to how they want to deal and, you know, respond to this bad day. If we have good habits, we will be able to have a better relationship with ourselves, which is why a lot of times people are very disciplined, like yourself. People who've long had like very, very incredibly stressful jobs, and 37 years is a long time for you to have such a really important, impactful job. And I think that, I could be wrong, please correct me, but I'm curious if your routines, your discipline has held you on days when nothing else has been able to go right in your life. And that is very important. What you choose to repeat in your life will make a big difference.
Well, yes, I agree with your observation that there have been very tough phases in my life, and my discipline has helped me on. And that brings me to another aspect, you know. It's said that the mind speaks to the body and the body speaks to the mind. There's a mind-body connect. And in this mind-body connect, you know, it goes without saying that if you do a physical activity, it's a mood enhancer. And it may be as good antidote to depression as drugs may be. So, physical health goes well with mental health and vice versa. What is the connection between it from a psychotherapist's hat?
Well, sir, in therapy, I always give the example of a piano, which is the body, and the pianist, which is the mind. And when we work out, when we eat well, when we sleep well, which is a big indicator of health, we have a very robust piano, right? But, and it's very important to have it. But if we only work on the piano and not work enough on the pianist is not well, then despite having the most incredible piano available, your health will suffer. You'll not be able to create melody and harmony in your life, right? So, as you rightly said, a good exercise definitely makes your mood better. But sometimes we need to be able to do both, because just doing one will not help. Having said that, I know a lot of my clients who have greatly felt better and even avoided medication on several occasions by having a discipline of working out, because it has helped them. Definitely the psyche, which is the mind, and the soma, which is the body, are connected. In psychotherapy, we have a whole diagnosis called somatic disorders, where the distress of the mind plays out like pain on your body. So the upper back pain has a particular understanding. Lower back pain has a particular understanding. People who are very anxious tend to have cramps in their calves. And even when we check and take in a regular checkup between our sessions, we have a physical regulator of what all the client is feeling even throughout a session. So yes, to answer your question, there is a very direct link between the two. But I think both are equally important when you want to have sustained harmony in life.
That's a very, very beautiful answer. The piano and the pianist, this is going to stick in my mind forever. It has been so beautifully articulated, and I think most of the times we neglect the pianists, and we work at everything in life, but we do not work at being happy and harmonious and such things. So, coming to the pianists, can you give us, to the people in general and youth in particular, 3 or as many as you like, some important and practical tools that they can take care of their mental health?
Sure, sir. I'll take your number. We'll talk about 3. So I'd just like to point out that in psychoanalytic therapy, we customize the toolbox for each psyche. But there are 3 broad conceptual tools that we use that are always present in all toolboxes that we create with our clients. The first is that we are responsible for our health, especially our mental health. The reason why I'm emphasizing on this is because largely the world runs on this unconscious pact, that I'll take care of you, you take care of me, it's all good. But very often we are in circumstances where people are not in this setup. They are not cared for, or they cannot be cared for, or they're not cared for in the way that can allow for good mental health. There are very debilitating circumstances. There are very difficult life situations that people cannot get out of. So the point of having an internal resource that you create is based on the fact that it does not depend on your external circumstances changing or not. So step number 1 will always be that you are responsible for your mental health, no matter what is going on the outside. And I think that takes you away from being at the mercy of others and the mercy of the circumstance, and allows you an actual entry point, to do something about yourself. The second big conceptual tool that we work with is understanding your mind. We assume that we know ourselves. How often do we say, oh, I know, and I know, and I know, but we don't know. So many times, we come across in our work that each mind has its own unique code of communication with even one's own self. Forget about other people. I'll give a tiny anecdote from my life. So once, a couple of years back, I was wearing slippers with the foam base, and I was walking around in the market, and something kept pricking my foot. And I eventually stopped, and I tried to find what's wrong, expecting to find a pebble or a nail, something that was embedded in it, right? I couldn't find anything, so nothing was visible. I was perplexed. I was like, what is this strange thing that is not visible and continues to hurt? Well, I walked back to my car, and all the way back, I noticed across the road there were 2 men carrying a large pane of glass. And in my mind's eye, in that split second, I saw the glass being shattered into a million pieces. And I was a little taken aback. I was like, whoa, what is that? And I didn't think much of it. I dismissed it. Post dinner that night, I decided to take a stroll, and as luck would have it, I wore the same slippers, right? And again, the pain came back. And this time, I was determined to find out what is pricking me. So I stood under the street light, and I'm twisting it this way and that way to try and figure it out. And suddenly, out pops a shard of glass.
Oh.
It was the same dimension as the sole of my slipper, and it had gotten embedded in it. And in that moment, I recalled that bizarre mind, image that I had where I saw the glass shattering. And it dawned upon me that my mind had already gotten the answer. It was trying to communicate to me, but I didn't catch that communication. And I think that happens very often. So many times after a really long, tiring day, I strongly suggest you try this. Your mind will keep telling you, kuch meetha khana, I want to eat something sweet. Have a glass of water.
Yeah.
You will be surprised your body will be satiated immediately and the desire to eat sweet might reduce. It's not a dietary thing, sir.
I'm going to try that.
Yeah,
I have a sweet tooth. I'm going to try that.
No, actually the body actually needs sustenance. It wants to have a glass of water, but we are accustomed to responding to something sweet more than we are accustomed to responding to having a glass of water. So please, I urge everyone to really become curious about yourself. Find new things about oneself, have a conversation with oneself. People usually do it through the medium of writing, as I know you do, journaling and writing small notes, but also conversations in the mind. That's what I do. And it should be a solitary exercise, sir, because it's very important to build this connection. And I think that this one thing will really become the precursor of changing the way you experience yourself in day-to-day life.
Yes.
And the last thing, very quickly, is please embrace boredom.
Boredom.
Yes, I know it sounds so weird, but the thing is that when we're bored and we're twiddling our thumbs and we have nothing to do, our mind goes blank, right? And for the first time, we are not dictating what should be on the mind screen. The mind has a chance to tell us something instead.
Speak to us.
Yes. So for the first time, we have a two-way conversation. What we started with tool number 2 is concluded with tool number 3, which is that let the mind speak to you.
So your mind was speaking to you, in a way giving you a signal, that shard window pane which came as a to your mind.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting.
I mean, it looks like these are really simple tools, right? But I assure you, give them a try and they will really change your experience of being with yourself. And I think that I feel is really, really important.
Those are very interesting tools which you have told, and I'm sure many will benefit from it. But in life, we have co-passengers in terms of family and parents. What would be your shout out to the parents of those children or youth or who have mental health issues?
I'd like to say a few things, sir. The first and most foremost is that I think that it's okay to be very different from your child. Our imagination is that our child is cut from the same cloth as us. But very often, especially with parents who are dealing with children who have mental illnesses and are struggling with, being able to help them in some way, one of the big things we've noticed is that the child is temperamentally very different from the parent. They process distress differently, they respond to pain differently, they respond to even being helped differently than what the parents are accustomed to. So I think that's very important, that it's perfectly okay to be very different from your child, to not be in sync with your child. It's all right. The second is that I would encourage more parents to seek help. Because there are, the purpose of therapy really, sir, is that it provides the safe playground for the child to be able to act out whatever is in their mind. And it is really designed to safeguard other relationships. I admit that having a total stranger be so important to your child can be very daunting. It can feel very threatening for a parent. But I really want to reiterate the point that, nobody can replace a parent in a child's life. Absolutely nobody. Least of all a therapist or a counselor. That I feel is really important. And I think the third thing is that far too much of parenting seems to be stressing on don't make mistakes.
Mistakes all right. Mistakes all right.
Yeah, I think that someone with your age and grace has the capacity to recognize that, mistakes are something that will happen despite our best intentions, right?
Mistakes also means that you're doing stuff in life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? You want the best experience, but and parenting is the toughest job in the world that comes with no manual, right? So I think the stress should be on reparation, how to repair the bond. It's okay even if there was a catastrophe. But if you're able to overcome that moment, and your child and you are able to get back together, if there is forgiveness, if there is repair, then that gives your child the capacity to feel held in a way that nothing else really can. Not even therapy can do this. Yeah.
That's a very, very profound shout out to the parents, I must say, and much beyond the young shoulders which you have. In my general observation that presently society is going through a lot of relationship problems. So, what do you value more, love or trust?
Oh, trust, sir.
Why?
Sir, trust is the first thing we learn as babies. In Erik Erikson's theory of the self, he has placed trust versus mistrust as the first thing that we have. When we trust ourselves, sir, we are essentially telling ourselves that, I'm going to sail through whatever tumult life is going to throw at me. And that makes you fall in love with yourself, with someone else, Trust is the precursor of love. The opposite is not true, sir.
Ashwasti, you are a professional who is excelling in her field. You are an icon for youth. You are successful. You're pursuing your dreams. What message do you have for the youth?
I think, sir, that I think we briefly touched this earlier when we were talking about connections. I think it's very important that in an ocular world, in a world that is so driven by imaginations and vision boards, that you very much stay close to things that you can touch. जो चीज़ आप छू सकते हैं, उसकी वो बहुमूल्य है सर.
उसका कोई replacement नहीं.
उसका कोई replacement नहीं है सर.
How
क्योंकि
beautiful.
in our with social media, with all of these growth trajectories, these predictions, these mappings, etc., that we have, even with AI coming in, the people who you eat your food with, the people you have fun with, the people that even you work with, including your work. When you think about your work, I urge you to think of how your work is going to impact other people's lives instead of what it's going to do for you alone. I think that is very important, because one of the big things that mental illnesses do, they isolate you. If you do not have this, web of connections, you are going to fall straight on the rocks. But when you have this web of connections, you kind of bounce.
Okay.
You don't shatter. You fall.
But you bounce.
But you bounce. And eventually you bounce back.
Strength of being with each other.
Yes, sir.
There
will be someone.
That's beautiful. Fellow travelers, we covered a great wide spectrum with Ashwasti with regard to mental health issues, especially in India. But what really has come out beautifully is the tools she has spoken about, which we can use. The first one being that take responsibility of your own mental health issue as well as physical health issues. And second is really try to know your own self. And she gives a tool. You can do it through journaling, you can do it through writing, but most important of all is that you do it as a solitary exercise. It's like a dialogue with yourself, which you are transcribing on the paper, you are reinforcing. And the third one is that spend time with yourself. She used the word boredom, but I would say spend time with yourself, and in which your mind talks to you. It has the chance, it has, the tehrao to speak to you and allows you to clear the cobwebs in the mind. To the parents, she said something very profound, that your child, every child is unique, but if your child has these issues, he is eminently more unique than others, and accept the difference. Besides that, what she said beautifully was that accept the child, reach out for help, and the parents can never be replaced in their lives of children. And therapists provide a very safe space for children and for young people to be able to mainstream themselves. Besides this, one very interesting thing which she said was that keep social connections going, make them deep, and keep them as a bedrock, keep those connections steeped in trust. Thank you, Ashwasti, for being with us. And fellow travelers and friends, if you want to reach out to her, her details are there in the descriptions. Thank you, Ashwasti. It was absolute pleasure to hear you. I'm sure a lot would be inspired, a lot of cobwebs would be cleared, and people will follow the path you have shown. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.